I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and honest, find a rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side, yeah.
And we are back. Welcome all to Away Days on Loaded Mag NUFC. We're back. 23-24 season is in full swing. And of course, it wouldn't be the same without a match preview for the Newcastle versus Aston Villa game. And tonight, me and Richie are going to go through it all with our Villa fans that are waiting in the green room. But first of all, Richie, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. You?
Not too bad, not too bad. Busy day, but of course, we get to work properly right now as we talk all things Newcastle United. But look, just get your thoughts and feelings very quickly before we bring the boys on. Excited for the new season, and you're excited to be starting off the season, testing our strengths against Aston Villa.
Well, I'm glad that's going to be your only silly question of the night, Pete, because of course I'm bloody well looking forward to the weekend, mate. You know, if you look back, it's actually flown around when you think about it. It only seems a short time ago we were celebrating qualifying for the Champions League. Talking of this Sandro Tonali coming in, and obviously Harvey Barnes now, and obviously Livramento in the last few days as well. You never know, our business, fingers crossed, isn't done yet. And here we are against, we had a fantastic game in pre-season against Villa. A couple of good games last season. Obviously, we had a good win at home. We were shocking away from home, so obviously we'll be looking to put that right on Saturday. And it's great to have two fantastic Villa fans on, and Rich and Billy to chew the fat over it. Definitely,
yeah, you are absolutely right. And look, cannot wait for this weekend. Cannot wait for the season to begin. Back amongst it all, and there's no better way in getting back into it against Aston Villa. We'll get the boys on very shortly, but massive thanks to everyone that's already in the chat. I can see right at the bottom there, we've got Bill Burnett, regular in the chat. Hope you're well. You got Ewan in the chat. Welcome to the channel. We've got Jason, of course, always in the chat. Truls, great to see you in here tonight. The likes of Mark Todd, Kamal, Dave. Of course, we've got Lisa in the chat as always. Adam, welcome, Adam. Not seen you for a while. Hope you're well. And many, many more. But of course, away days wouldn't be away days without the opposition's viewing. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome in both of these Aston Villa fans. We've got Rich from the Villa Park Pod. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Pete. I know I came in with a certain heading under my name, but I changed it for the full show.
Now, for anyone, and Richard, I don't think you were here at the time, but when Rich came in, he came in on his banner saying 3-0. And just reminded us of the result at Villa Park. So there were some words exchanged. Fair, I was like,
I nearly didn't make it on the show. Put it that way.
But it's all right. It's all right, Rich, because over a two-legged affair, they still lost 4-3.
Well, I knew it wouldn't take long for that one to come out, to be fair.
To be fair, if they'd kept it on, I'd have left and come back in the morning. So,
do you know what, Pete? I was going to say before we went live, but it's nice to know he's sporting his Adidas 1994-95 retro away top that Ginola was famous for.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I know he lives up here now in the northeast. Where I don't know if you're still Irish, but it's nice that you've got your Geordie Lightly's roots there somewhere.
Okay, fair enough.
More Ferdinand and Ginola than it is Villa stripes, should we say?
It is hoops, it is the retro hoops.
Yeah, it's Luke Rope is the Villa fan, is the designer, the Villa fan designer. So yeah, got to sport the colours.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. And of course, all the way over from sunny Spain, we've got from the Total Scrimmage podcast, we've got Billy. How you doing, Billy?
How we doing, boys? I've got to be honest, Pete. That intro is I said behind the scenes, didn't I, that I was a little bit tired. That intro's got me prepared for battle. I'm ready for this now. I'm ready for this.
I love it. And it gets us right in the mood for a show when that music gets off, that's for sure. But great to have you boys on and to talk all things Newcastle and Aston Villa. And that, look, we have to start with it. You boys have had a hell of a ride of things, certainly in the last 6 months, with regards to Aston Villa. And it's mostly due to this man. Unai Emery's come in and completely changed your squad. Now, what I'm really interested to find out from you guys is what has he actually done? I think I might have mentioned it to you, Billy, on a separate conversation way back when. But what has he actually done that's made the difference for you to be in the position that you are now? Because a lot of your squad of players are the same. But what has he done that's made the difference, that's got you not only in a European position, but got people talking about you with regards to this season ahead? Billy, we'll start with you.
The second he came in, he really focused on bringing us together, making it a family. Under Gerrard, we were everywhere. We really didn't gel. The fans were one part of the club, the players were a separate part of the club. Then you've got the board. It was just a complete and utter mess. Unai Emery has come in, and from day one, he said we need a family feel. And that's what he's done, and that's what he's focused in on, and that's what we are now. Mm-hmm. And the relationship from players to fans to board, certain aspects of the board, but Monchi coming in, it really feels like we're a family now, and we're on the road up, and it's going to take a lot to stop us. And that's how I feel. We've got this steam train going now, and it's like I say, it's going to take us a lot to stop us. We're a real force I feel like we're a real force to be reckoned with. So hopefully that can continue on into this season. We've made some real positive transfers in the window, and yeah, I don't like sounding this confident because I'm never normally this confident, and when I am this confident, it normally comes back in my face. But Unai Emery's just got me feeling some kind of way.
Well, I was on with you on a few pods last year, and you definitely weren't feeling this confident. So he's clearly done something to you as a Villa fan, that's for sure. But Rich, he's got Billy feeling some kind of way. Has he got you feeling some kind of way? And what kind of way are you going to be feeling this season? What are your aims? What do you think Unai Emery can do for you at Aston Villa this season?
I think he's brought a lot of positivity back to the club, as Billy said, brought the fans together, and similar to St James's Park. Once Villa Park gets going, it's a very difficult place for teams to play at. Equally, when it's not good, it can be. It's one of those grounds where the fans can get on the players' backs. But he certainly brought it together. And just to add on to what Billy said, I think you said it was the same players, and that is true. Barring Alex Moreno last season, it pretty much was the same team. And I think what was happening was the players were desperate for coaching and desperate for a system. And Emery just came in and gave them that system. We'd had Dean Smith, and he brought the feeling, good nature, and the good feeling back to the club. And he had Jack Grealish, who was our talisman, and it was essentially just give the ball to Jack Grealish, and he will do something. that's not to take anything away from Dean Smith, but essentially that's what it was. And then he suffered from off the back of him going. And we thought that Gerrard would bring that kind of ruthless edge, that winning mentality, but I just don't think he had the coaching nous to go with that kind of ruthless edge. And Unai Emery's got both. He's got that kind of obsessive nature about him, as well as, you know, he's improving players, and pretty much every single player in that Villa squad has improved. So yeah, we can be hugely excited for this season. And I think, you know, it's difficult because both teams have got European football to contend with this season. You guys, obviously higher level, much higher level with the Champions League, but probably an easier to manage schedule, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, one that the players are more used to. We've got a lower level of European competition, but Thursday, Sunday, which notoriously is difficult. But I would have to say that, like, looking at the options that we've got, you'd have to go into this season positive that we can finish at least where we finished last season and maintain a good cup run, which would be fantastic.
Definitely. Richard, before I come to you with regards to your opinion on Aston Villa, I do believe we have a
super chat received.
We do have a super chat, and massive thanks to Colin for your £10 donation to the channel. Always a super supporter of the channel, and thank you for your donation. Put a question in. We say that to every show, Richard, don't we? Put a question in because you've donated and you've supported the channel. So make sure you put a question in. But thank you anyway. Richie, I'm going to come to you from your perspective on Aston Villa. From a Newcastle point of view, as a Newcastle fan, are you worried about Villa this season with regards to Newcastle's rise?
I think the thing is now there's more than just one team to be wary of. There's a lot of teams, you know. Brighton had a fantastic season last year. Obviously Villa did as well. We did, but that top half of the table now is very, very competitive, and I think on the day anybody could potentially beat anybody. It's all about consistency, I think, going forward. But if you look at the scenario between Newcastle and Villa is very similar. You know, there was a disconnect under the previous managers and previous regime and stuff like that. And you can see why Newcastle were linked with Emery as well, because obviously there's a similar feel with obviously we've got Eddie Howe and we're happy with Eddie Howe. But obviously I think fans who know football knew that the situation that Emery had at Arsenal was, you know, he was probably a bit hard done to because, you know, I don't know if Potts will agree with this, but sometimes it can be a bit demanding, you know, because of what happened during the Wenger days and stuff like that. And think that possibly sometimes, you know, deserve more than what they actually had. But he was doing a decent job. But and he went back to Spain, did a really good job in Spain, and he deserved his chance. He probably thought it was unfinished business to come back to Villa, and it's something he could do. And he's come in and he's done a fantastic job. And I think, you know, Newcastle fans have got to hold their hand up and say that he's had a good, fantastic start. But it is a type where we're probably about 6 months or so ahead in the. Well, to be fair, we've probably jumped even more than that because Villa were a little bit ahead of us before Eddie Howe came in. So, we've said we're a year ahead probably for the Champions League this year, and it's progressed things drastically than we were expecting, really. And, you know, FFP's hitting us hard because we're trying to go for players now that we probably weren't being linked with. So, but, you know, they've got that pull now as well. There's some fantastic signings. I know we'll go into depth with a few of the signings because I know one in particular, me and Pete were desperate to have at Newcastle that we were, and he's hit the ground running for you since, you know, over the summer series. I've seen some of the games he played. He was fantastic. But overall, I think everyone's going to be worried of everyone, to be fair. If I'm honest, if you're going to be really hands-on, you've got to be honest. You know, Villa will not be looking forward to come to St James's Park. Yes, okay, I think Emery it had been announced, but he wasn't technically in charge when he came up, and obviously he's implemented a lot since then. It'll be a lot closer game. I don't think it'll be as one-sided as that one, and I don't think when we go back down to Villa, it will be as one-sided as it was when we went down there. You know, we had a couple of people missing that people were saying, oh, yeah, he's only such and such. That doesn't mean anything. If a certain person's got a job to do, and they do the job better than anybody else, you do miss them on the day. I think it'll be a fantastic game on Saturday. I really, really do. I think there'll be goals in it, and I think they'll be close.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we'll get down to the game later on, but I think you're right. I think it will be a very entertaining game. You mentioned, Rich, just when you were speaking there about the game at Villa Park. Obviously, I was there. We all watched it. Villa blew us away. They were fantastic. It was almost like Newcastle weren't expecting it. We weren't expecting you to. We were expecting to be more competitive, and you were just so much better than us on the day. Now, this is a question to you, boys, with regards to this from a Villa perspective. Do you think you'll be able to surprise teams this season and blow teams away the way you did in the last 6 months of the season, now that everybody knows how good you are, and of course with the signings that you've made, and we'll come to them in a second. But do you think you're going to have the same jump on everybody like you did in that last part of the season?
Yeah, no, good question. I guess yes and no. I guess I think there will be teams that will set up against us to put players behind the ball and kind of make it more difficult, similar to what some teams did to you guys. You know, once they knew how kind of strong you were. And then it's all about getting that early goal or getting that goal from a different piece of play. And that's one thing that I think we've noticed from Villa this pre-season. And obviously it's so difficult to tell in pre-season. But we've added not only different players, you know, like a Moussa Diaby, who's got that lightning pace, a Yuri Tielemans, who's got that passing ability and that shooting from distance ability, which we've missed as a team. But we've also, and I'm sure Billy will agree, we've also set up like different passing movements. And like I've said it on numerous podcasts, and my own podcast, it's so pleasing to see as a football fan, like stuff that goes on the training ground actually come to life on the football pitch, and actually not only create chances but also create goals. You know, most of the time with football, as football fans, we look at a manager and we look at the team going on the Saturday and we're saying, what the hell are they doing in training to come out and play like this? You know, how can they not beat the first man on a corner, or how can they not see that pass or whatever? What are they doing? Whereas with Villa, like under Emery, he's so like particular that every move, every single passing lane, every single kind of set play is practiced, and it's almost like some of the teams, they know what's happening, but they can't do anything about it because of the way it's set up. So I think we've got more kind of movements and more kind of different ways of playing to kind of compensate for the fact that teams will know what to expect now from us.
Yeah, and Rich Joblin, too many Riches for tonight. I don't know who I'm talking to half the time, but Rich Joblin, a great supporter of the channel, always in the chat. But Pete, don't forget, we had a style of play towards the end of our Great Escape season, and people then thought the same, but we kept doing it, and no matter what teams did, they couldn't cope. And I think that's a really good point, and it's sort of similar to what you're saying, Rich, with regards to Villa's standpoint going into the season. But Billy, I'll ask you, do you think you'll be able to do that over a course of a full season? And I'm applying a little bit of pressure here because, you know, we had the same going into last season, as Rich quite rightly said. But what you have that we didn't is a European campaign. Do you think you'll be able to maintain that week in, week out, whilst playing Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Monday? Do you think you'll be able to maintain that over the course of the season? But do you believe you've got the squad to be able to maintain
that? Yeah, I do, to be honest with you. I don't see why we can't go on and play like we did last season and play as well as we did last season. You know, I was watching us in pre-season, watching the games with my dad at times. Some of the passages of play, we just look at each other and burst out laughing because we can't believe that we're watching Aston Villa sometimes. And seeing us progress how we have and having a full pre-season of Unai Emery, I think is really going to allow us to be able to continue to play like that and to continue to beat teams like that as well. And Emery's played the last 16 seasons of his managerial career in Europe. He knows how to deal with it, and I don't think there's few managers better out there to equip a team with the knowledge that he has on how to handle that Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Monday schedule. So look, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. Of course it is. But I think we're capable of doing it. I think we've got the squad to be capable of doing it as well. So I just hope we do it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And like Rich, I'll come to you from a Newcastle perspective. You know, as I said to Billy before, we didn't have last season a European campaign to kind of contend with. Is that for you going to be a stumbling block for Villa, looking from the outside in with regards to how well they're going to do this season, and potentially could it be a problem for us because we're in the same boat as Rich said when he was talking earlier with regards to us playing Champions League football? Do you think that could potentially? The reason why I'm saying this is because both of our clubs right now, so many people have said in the chat, so glad Villa and Newcastle are up there challenging, and we're doing it at the same time, and we're disrupting that traditional top six. But do you think the European seasons could hamper us, both Newcastle and Villa, or do you think actually it's something that we could maintain over the season? What's your opinion on
it? I think both clubs can deal with it pretty well, actually, mainly because I think the youngsters that both squads have got, they've got some fantastic youngsters. And it'll probably be more appropriate to Villa on this one rather than Newcastle because they've got some fantastic youngsters, obviously Jacob Ramsey and the likes like that. But what you've got is I don't know the new lad that you had playing on the wing over the pre-season.
Philogene.
Yeah, he looked brilliant when he played against us. He looked fantastic. If you've got players like that who know the systems and know the jobs, like the youngsters at Newcastle do, I think they'll be fantastic in the European competition for you because this is where the benefit they're going to get the football that they need because the opposition that they come up against, obviously, I think it's Luzerne or is it Hibs that you'll play if they get through. So realistically, this is the thing where you hate as a footballer. You should be beating the likes of them pretty much, and I think that's the sort of opposition which will give your youngsters a fantastic test, especially when you get to them, through the group stage as well, because I think you'll be seeded for that competition as well. Will you be coefficient?
Yeah.
Of the last year. So
only just.
Yeah, well, to be fair, if we kept ours up, had some European tournaments during the Ashleys, we might still have had ours, but never mind. Different story. We'll not go there again. But no, I think that's the perfect example for them to get the experience need, which will boost you for the Premier League campaign still. So you'll be able to keep that a strong 11, for your weekends. Whereas Newcastle, yes, we've got the better timetable as such, as Rich mentioned before. You play your weekend, you play your Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think that the youngsters that we've got now sort of probably got a little bit more experience playing week in, week out in the Premier League, so that they can adapt it to the European side if needs be. And we've discussed this before in the Champions League. Yes, we're going to be in pot 4, and there's going to be some big games there. But there's a lot of people that aren't going to fancy coming to Newcastle and playing us, no matter who's in the squad, because it's a daunting place to go. And there's teams in pot 2 and 3 who we are very, very capable of beating. So even with a changed squad round, you know what I mean? So I think Newcastle and Villa have got a squads that can cope with both at this moment in time. Whether that plays out over the next, until December, because it's going to be, as we were discussing, when you talk about putting your timetable together in your schedule for compiling shows, both channels, both sets of fans and their relevant podcasts, you're going to be busy because you're going to be playing, doing 2 different games a week and stuff like that. It's going to be hard.
Pete, you better tell the missus now, mate.
Yeah.
Surely knows. We're about to sort of schedule out. It's going to be a bit of a bad one. Luckily, she's in the other room, so she's not again. But thanks, Rich, for the second time.
I know.
And now we're live.
Mine's out, so it's fine. I can do.
Oh, okay.
I
remember that for the return fixture. But if I'm sleeping outside, it's because of you. I'm blaming you.
Yeah.
But look, in all seriousness, we've touched on it as well. Before we move on to Newcastle United, I want to get your thoughts on Newcastle United as well. You've made some talented signings, terrific signings. Yuri Tillemans on a free transfer, Pau Torres, and of course the one that Richie was referring to earlier, Moussa Diaby, and they are really, really good signings, very impressive signings, not just for Villa, but I think you ask most clubs in the top half of the table, they would have wanted at least one of those signings in their squad, effectively. How exciting is that for you boys? And what are those three signings, in your opinions, going to bring to your team? And how far are they going to elevate you to the next level, potentially next season?
Well, I think that these three will really elevate us in terms of really being able to compete in Europe and in the cups, and also competing for the European place in the league. You've all of a sudden you've really got that the strength in depth, first of all, but also I've lost I can't remember the word. The challenge for the positions, basically.
Competition.
Exactly, yeah. And so if one player has a poor week, all of a sudden, Moussa Diaby, for example, Moussa Diaby struggles the first couple of games. You've got someone like Leon Bailey there, and if Leon Bailey knows if he has a dodgy game, then Moussa Diaby is going to be put straight back in, and vice versa. I think the perfect example is probably Yuri Tillemans and Douglas Luiz, who I've had this out several times on the 12th man. When Tillemans came in, I didn't see any way how Douglas Luiz loses his place. If I was to choose the 11 tomorrow, it has to be Yuri Tillemans that starts for me over Douglas Luiz. I've just been so impressed with how he's played in pre-season. His range of passing is just fantastic. And for me, he's been the standout in pre-season, the standout signing. And I'm really, really excited to see what he can do for us in the league and obviously in the cup competitions as well. So the three signings, it really, really does give us the opportunity to go out on all fronts and show that we're not just here for a season or two. We're here and we're here to stay, and we're going to be competitive for the next, hopefully, 5-10 years and so on. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Look, to be fair, during the summer, we're on the 12th man pod when we're on. We did hammer you and come in hard on you with regards to Tillemans, and not just me. There was others probably worse than me. Really, I
didn't realize quite how good of a player he was, and under Unai Emery, I've been very pleasantly surprised, and I just hope it stays that way. I just hope he gets better and better and better and reaches that potential that we knew he had at Leicester. He's only 26 or something. He's still got a lot of football in him, and he's someone who's had a lot of Premier League experience already. He's not a player that's going to come in and take a couple of weeks to get used to the Premier League. He knows the Premier League like the back of his hand, and really, really exciting time.
Look, Rich, I'll come to you with regards to your opinion on those three players that you brought in, but I'll add an extra thing, a question onto that. In that, in your opinion, is there more needed to be done between now and the end of the window? And if so, in what positions do you think needs to be strengthened for Villa?
Yeah, the signings first are excellent. Obviously, I think Pau Torres was one that Emery wanted. I think he was probably his first choice. Trusts him from his days at Villarreal, and saw a way of being able to bring him into the team that he could play left-sided centre half, and he can also play that left back role where if you're playing a Matty Cash who can bomb on down the right and that player can tuck in. So he's got a bit of variety now. So he could do the same on the right side and put Konza at right back and play an attacking left back. So he's got that flexibility there. Billy's 100% right on Tielemans. I mean, a free transfer. If you look at our 2 free transfers in midfield, which is Boubacar Kamara and Yuri Tielemans, it's absolutely incredible the business that's been done there. He's surprised. I think probably every Villa fan in terms of, because I think he got a bit of criticism, which was fair for last season. You know, I think he had his nose put out of joint when the lad who went to Chelsea. What's the young lad's name who went to Chelsea? Who keeps getting injured. No, the Leicester player.
Oh,
the Leicester player. The defender.
Wesley Fofana.
Yes, Wesley Fofana. Yeah. Wesley Fofana. Because I think Tielemans was promised a move, and he didn't get the move, and Fofana got the move, and I think that got his nose pushed out of joint a little bit. So, you know, whatever, you down tools a little bit, you could be accused of that a bit last season, but he wasn't the only Leicester player that was terrible last season. So, you know, that's the way it is, and he's been fantastic. And then Moussa Diaby, just that extra icing on the cake, that pace that we've needed, that ruthlessness, which hopefully shows into the season. And again, as Billy said, like, it gives us those options off the bench. And now with, you know, we'll come to it, but Emi Buendia having that, you know, really bad injury, which is terrible for him. And obviously we've got Jacob Ramsey, who's out for a few weeks until the start, you know, into just towards the start of the season. That ability to have those players, and you don't want to have, like you guys, you don't want to make too many signings to upset the squad. You want to build it gradually so that when you look at that bench, you've got 4, 5, 6 options that can come on, rather than at the end of last season, it was like Emery was scared to make a substitution, and we got really lucky in the fact that we didn't have many injuries. So yeah, it gives us that solidity. In terms of new players, I think we need a striker. That's the main position. Whether it's a backup to Ollie Watkins, that's the kind of debate. Whether he responds well to competition, or whether we need like a different type of striker. Now, I would lean towards a different type of striker, and they're very difficult to find, obviously. But for me, I think we need a big 6'2", 6'3", you know, player who can come on or can start, who can bring players into the game and just be a different option to that Ollie Watkins type player. So that would be for me. And then obviously with Emi Buendia having that really bad injury, we're looking at Zaniolo. I think we've put in an offer for him. So I think that'll get done in the next couple of days. That'll be a loan with an option to buy. Now, I don't know much about him, but obviously it gives us an extra option. But we do have quite a few injuries as well. So, you know, like the likes of Dendoncker, the likes, like I say, of Ramsey, young player Irig Bonham, and obviously Buendia are injured. So, and Alex Moreno as well, who did so well last season. So we have still got players to come back. So the squad's looking pretty healthy. But I would say that forward option, that striking option, is definitely something that we need to look at.
I would agree. I think you're in a really sort of healthy position. Richie, I want to get your thoughts just generally on Villa's transfers, but I want to move it on to Newcastle. So we're going to kind of do this in one transition, really. In one particular player, because I know that we've talked about him a lot, Moussa Diaby. You know, your thoughts on him going to Villa. I think I already know the answer to this, but equally, then I want to get your opinions on Newcastle United. What your thoughts on Newcastle going into this season, and what you expect to see in this game on Saturday against Villa at St James's Park. So first of all, Moussa Diaby.
Well, I think we've both waxed lyrical about Moussa Diaby probably for the last 18 months or so. We've both watched a lot of Bundesliga, and I know there's a few people turn around saying, "Oh, is he just not?" And obviously, apology to the two lads, a Leon Bailey Mark II. And we both said that he's not. He's head and shoulders above Leon Bailey. Yes, they've both got a lot of pace. But I think with Moussa Diaby, he's got the composure in front of goal for both scoring and assisting as well. And he's got versatility where he can play in various different positions as well. He can lead the line if needs be. He can be electric from the flanks as well. So that was something that we felt he would have been the natural upgrade to Miguel Almiron. Hands down, it would have been, and I think then you've got a front three which is frightening. Obviously, and you've got cover in both areas as well. I still think we're light on the right hand side for that extra quality, and we both know that Almiron and Murphy can do a job there. We know that, say, Gordon can cover on flank on the right hand side if you want to, but I think it's when you want that natural star quality in that position that we both felt that Moussa Diaby was that guy, and. Have you overpaid from potentially? But obviously time will tell on that one. But that's the same with some of the players that we've got. People have said we've overpaid for Harvey Barnes, for Anthony Gordon. Obviously, time will tell on that one as well. When you looked, 18 months, 2-3 years down the line, that's when if you've overpaid for someone. Anthony Gordon, young player of the Euros, under 21 tournament. Would have anyone thought about that in January when we signed him? No. So it's a tough one to take. Pau Torres, I don't know much about Pau Torres, but the fact that he was at Villarreal with Emery, and it looks like obviously he's going to come and play that left centre half position for Villa, which over Mings probably isn't really hard to take that position, even though I've heard Mings. There's been things since that Mings has been reassured he's parcel of the plans going forward and stuff like that. It'll be interesting.
Don't start me and Pete on Tyro Mings.
Oh, we all know about
Let's start the conversation. I'm ready to have that conversation.
I think I'd be interested to see who you play at right centre half, because obviously Rich mentioned before, obviously Conte's played there, but obviously you've got Diego Carlos return after that nasty injury last year. So it'll be interesting to see whether he'll persist with Conte and then possibly bring Torres in with Ming, or vice versa, because you don't really like to put two people who are not used to the league in at the same time, because of that, Newcastle could exploit that on Saturday. We've got an experienced front line within the Premier League, and that's the pace of the Premier League and stuff like that. That might be that's something that definitely doesn't happen in Spain. So if you've got Carlos and Torres as your two centre halves, we could exploit that, and I no doubt Pete will pick this up when he does the tactics board later. But I've been impressed with what they've brought in so far. Obviously, Tielemans, I think he splits the difference. He on his day can be a fantastic player, but obviously, as Billy mentioned, there was a lot about down in tools last year, and obviously, we'll see if Emery's given him a kick up the arse and he respects Emery so much that he'll deliver on a week-to-week basis. But also, will he be able to deal with the fact he might not play every week? Because obviously you've got the strength and depth there as well. He was probably in that, that mandatory 3 you'd pick at Leicester, whereas, as you've already touched on, lads, like Newcastle have got now, you've got strength and depth in the midfield. So if someone drops out in a position, you've got someone who can come in. Like you said, Tielemans, Kamara, you've got Douglas Luiz. You can probably rotate those 3, which you'll probably see quite a lot over, especially having the European campaign as well. So it's whether he'll, will he kick off if he's not playing as much as he wants to as well? This is all questions about his character, and this is probably one of the reasons why, yes, we were linked with Tielemans, but Eddie Howe, one of the first things he looks at his players is their character. And if there's any doubts, you walk away whether the guy's talented or not. And that could be a reason why we didn't go in for him. I don't know. But obviously, on his day, as we said, he's a good player. He's a Belgian international. He's got a Premier League experience for free. It's a risk worth taking on that one. So
Just a quick housekeeping. Thank you all for tuning in and all the questions and comments in the chat. Much appreciated. If you haven't yet clicked the likes, I think we've got about 60 likes at the moment. We've got way over 170 in the chat right now. Click like and subscribe. We are less than 10 away from 6K. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. Try and get us to 6K. If it's tonight or before our next show, that'll be amazing. Thank you very much for that. Boys, wanted to get your opinions on Newcastle United. So, Rich, I'll come back to you in a second. I'll go round back to Billy and Rich from a Villa point of view. What do you make of Newcastle United's business, Billy? I'll start with yourself. This summer. So, look, we've brought in Sandro Tonali earlier on in the window, Harvey Barnes from Leicester, we've got Ikube Minter, and at this point now we have Tino Livramento, who's come in just in the last week. What do you make of Newcastle's business this summer, and what do you make of Newcastle in terms of their progression in their project into this season? What do you expect of us, and is it something that you as a Villa fan is worried about?
It's not necessarily something that I'm worried of. I'm quite excited for you, to be honest with you, because I do think that you're going to continue to progress. I think I had you down as third, finishing third this season, and I do think you'll be able to juggle the Champions League as well as the league. I think you're going to be a real force. Signings that you've made, fantastic players, all of them. I don't know about Minter. He's the one I'm not too sure about, but Livramento, before his injury, what a player. Having someone like Trippier to put his arm around him and to feed him through as well is just going to do amazing things for him. Harvey Barnes, fantastic player as well. Listening to Leicester fans, though, I think he was, or from a Villa perspective, it sounded like he was a bit Leon Bailey type that can be very hot and cold at times.
Don't listen to honestly, Billy, Leicester fans. If you went back 3 or 4 months, they were waxing lyrical about him.
Most probably.
As soon as relegation hit, their mindset very quickly changed. And James Maddison in that position. They were their 2 best players.
And Tielemans.
Yeah, exactly. So
fair enough.
I've got an issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, he always scores against us anyway, so he's probably going to do the same on Saturday. So, Anyway, quality player. You can't deny that. And Tonali, it speaks for itself. The fact that he's gone to a team like Newcastle when he's an elite team anyway, with other elite teams interested in him, and he's gone to Newcastle. It's a massive show of intent from yourselves, and if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be very excited for this season and seasons coming up. I think you're there now, and by that I mean you're part of that now big 7 probably, and I think you're going to stay there indefinitely. You're there. It's just about where you finish season on season in that 7, and where you will finish in terms of trophies and things like that. So yeah, exciting times for both of us, I think. But yeah.
No, great points as always, Billy, and a lot, vast majority of that, if not all of it, I agree with. Rich, from your perspective, you are a Villa fan based in Newcastle. You know what? Come on, talk to Newcastle United. I'm sure you talk about it all the time, but come on.
Yeah.
Newcastle. Don't hold back. Be honest.
I was just about to say, some of the WhatsApp groups that I'm involved in, you talk about the Leicester fans doing double backs on players. As soon as Newcastle sign a player, he's world class. But as soon as Villa sign a player that Newcastle wanted, he's shite. So, that's every WhatsApp group. Every Newcastle fan I'm involved with.
Rich, you can't tell me and Pete with that regard to Diaby. I'm sorry, like you can't.
As soon as I posted the Derby sign for Villa, I got shite.
Yeah, for me,
Well,
and Pete, it was more like
he would have been
shit,
world
shit,
class.
shit, shit.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm like I say, it's all good banter. Me living in Newcastle, and absolutely, I have to say, I'm similar to Billy. You know, we have our bit of a rivalry, and seen in the chat, there's a fair few that say they don't like Villa and what have you, and obviously because Anton Deck couldn't save you all those years ago, but we won't go. We won't go there.
Don't start.
But no. In all seriousness, I think I agree with Billy. It's great what you're doing. You are you're doing it like in the right manner. Your signings have been good. Maybe one or two more to come in. I think that maybe that left back spot is probably something that you might wanted to look at. And every team needs looks for more attackers or more forward players, because we're all greedy, aren't we? So you maybe worry a little bit if if Wilson gets an injury again, or one or two other players get injured. But other than that, I think you've got a really good squad. And I know we'll get to the starting teams in a minute soon, but it always worries me the momentum that Newcastle can get. When they get going, the physicality, the pace. You guys blew us away last season in that kind of game at St James's Park, and you do that to so many teams. Like you did it to Spurs, and that's what worries me when Joe Linton and players like that get going. It's just really, really difficult to stop you. So if you're adding to that with more pace, with Livramento and Harvey Barnes, then you're just going to be even more, dangerous. So yeah, you've got a great team, and it's good. We keep saying it's good to see, the likes of Villa, the likes of Newcastle, Brighton, etc., moving up there to kind of challenge with the Man United and the like, because I know you guys were on that 12th man one yesterday, and they were talking about Newcastle players in the Man United squad in team, and I agreed. And I know Gabby Agbonlahor got a bit of stick, but for putting Villa players in the Man United team, but mate, I'd have had the same. Like it's funny how it is comparable, like the level of player now with Newcastle and Villa that can compete with the likes of Man United and Chelsea, because we've got good players.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I tried to stay out of that conversation, by the way. I was very, very quiet when they had that conversation, because I think they had 4 or 5. I'd have probably had 9.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up because I knew it would cause a bit of a riot, particularly with that. But yeah, we kind of left it as that. Richie, from a Newcastle perspective, and Rich, I know you might need to dip off and then
I'll jump back on in a second, boys. I'll see you in a sec.
No worries. I know Rich will be back in just a second, but and we've got our next section of the show, which we'll be coming to very, very shortly. But Rich, from a Newcastle perspective, was really interesting that Villa Rich, I'll refer to him as, talked about Newcastle building their team, and there was a conversation of pace and power that's being brought into this team to create that. Do you feel that that's the case with Newcastle? Do you feel that is what Eddie Howe wants in his team? And where do you think we need to improve on between now and the end of the window to ensure that we have that in an abundance to really attack this season, 23-24?
I think that for me, obviously, the one thing I've already mentioned, we know that the players got to have the right character first and foremost. But within the players he goes for, obviously, he likes the Premier League experience. He'd rather go for, Harvey Barnes rather than. Obviously, you could even throw Moussa Diaby in the mix there. He's because of the Premier League experience. He knows that the guy can do it. Probably a lot of people aren't fans of Harvey Barnes because he's not Harvinho Barnetto or something. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't got a foreign name and stuff like that. It's just because that's how fickle some fans can be. But they've got to have the right work ethic, and I suppose that falls into the character as well to do that, and obviously follow instructions, know rules. He likes tall players with power, and obviously the fact that he likes a bit of speed in there as well, so that while it's either attacking, catching teams on break, which we did numerous times last year, and I'll still see that we'll do that this year as well. But also the fact that if we were to get ourselves in trouble, that the recovery's there as well, and we can get players behind the ball, etc., etc. I think we've had this conversation numerous times over, especially over the transfer window, doing all the transfer shows. I still think we need the right centre back. I still would love and ideally a right winger. I really, really would, but I've got a feeling we're probably going to have to wait 12 months for that, unfortunately, because he's got people who are flexible, who can cover and are versatile, which is another trait that Eddie Howe likes. He likes versatility. He doesn't like someone who's pigeonholed for one position. So yeah, you can have the left back conversation again as well. Do we need another out and out proper recognised left back? People keep saying Dan Burn can't do it. Well, to be fair, you've got to throw in the question, why not? He did it last year. Why can't he do it this year as well? Obviously, you've got the extra games to take consideration. This is where the squad comes in, and this is where you might be able to play. Livramento in his interview said you can play on both sides. This is where you might see him come in and play a left back occasionally, or Trippier could play on the left and Livramento. It's that flexibility again. So, but yeah, I agree. I think there's probably if I had all the money in the world, there was no FFP restrictions. For me, it would be right at the back, left back. I still think I'd love a quality number 6, recognised number 6. Just that you've got that flexibility. Obviously, that we know there's the talk about Bruno signing a new contract. You would like to play a little bit more forward rather than being a recognised 6. People are saying Tonali's a 6, but then you watch a lot of him, he's not really a 6. He's a versatile centre midfielder that can play various different roles, which is one of the reasons why Eddie Howe bought him, because he's tactically very astute. He can play. You tell him what to do, and he'll do it. That's why he liked Tonali. And I still think we need someone who can... Yeah, I think Tyler Adams for 20 million go to Chelsea is an absolute no-brainer. It just... he sits in that role. He guards the defence. He's got that shithousery that we all love, that we saw from Newcastle last year. He's got that in his locker. When he came to Newcastle, he did it to us. As I said, I would love a right winger, but I think the right winger one, I think the ship's sailed on that one for this window. And as I've discussed already on previous editions, I do not think we'll be active in January unless there's a major injury comes in. And I think you might, if you have to go into the market, but I don't really think we'll be active in January. So I think we'll get 2 in, but ideally, if we had the money in the FFP, it would have been 4.
Yeah, I think I had 7 coming in for this window.
We both said between 5 and 7.
Yeah.
So
look, I don't think there'll be that, of course, but I do think Darren Neal's making his points today on Sky, saying that they're still active for business. I think there will be some players coming through the door, that's for sure, which I think everyone in the chat, Sports Newcastle United, will be very happy with that. Over 200 in the chat. Make sure you click that like. Let's get us to let's say 300 likes over the course of this period. Let's try and help the channel. Click that subscribe button. We are less than 10 away for 6K. We're 1 away. We're one
subscriber away.
One subscriber away from 6K.
Come on, get it on during the show. Come on, folks.
Any Villa fan that's in the chat
Billy,
tonight.
I know you haven't subscribed. Billy, get on and subscribe now.
I am, mate. Don't worry. I'll double check though.
I like that. Villa fan double checking, supporting the channel. We love it. We absolutely love it. And so 1 away. Let's get us to 6K tonight. I was going to say over the next few days, but 1 away. Come on, let's do it.
There you go. I'm subscribed.
I will let you off. We'll not kick you off, Billy. You can
good lad.
You can come back again.
I love it. But everyone click the like. Everyone click the like right now. So support the channel and make sure that the algorithms and all the rest of it can reach out far and wide to other Newcastle and Aston Villa fans as well to watch this. But of course, we're going to get into the game side of things now, and with that brings you know who.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller.
Evening, lads.
I like magic. He appears. New intro and all.
Is it August or is it Halloween?
It's always Halloween on the way, baby, with Keith in the house. But me and Rich don't even get new intros. And Keith's rocking it big time. But Keith, brand new season. Absolute pleasure to have you on Away Days again. How are you, fella?
We're all
excited for the new season.
We're all hoping that it won't be a nightmare season for our clubs, aren't we? That last season was not a dream for both clubs, and we're just hoping that we'll continue on in the vein we're going, really, aren't we?
Fingers crossed.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm well. I hope everybody on the team's well. I hope everybody's been enjoying that summer and break in between. I've got loads of stats ready here in advance. There hasn't been. It's the first game of the season. We haven't had a load of football, but I've got a load of stats ready for you.
Go for it. Throw in your stats. I think Billy just needs to reconnect. I'm used to this.
I think the intro scared him off, didn't it?
Absolutely.
No idea. Every single time it gets to about 50 minutes, it just kicks me off. Honestly, pain in the arse. I have no idea. Sorry about that.
No,
the old school electric meter, isn't it? That's it.
Dial up.
Just tell my sister to keep on cycling.
The old Blue Yonder dial up and everything, isn't it? Early 2000s.
I love it. Keith, what stats have you got for us this weekend? Sure. Newcastle United against Aston Villa. Go for it, mate.
So loads of stats coming up, some head-to-head stats, some player stats, manager stats, general stats, a little bit of pre-season stats as well, and that to round it off. So head-to-head stats, Newcastle's record against Aston Villa since 93-94, played 52, won 24, drawn 16 and lost 12. So a slight advantage there to Newcastle historically. Newcastle's record against Aston Villa at St James's Park in the Premier League, played 26, won 15, drawn 8 and lost 2. Really great record there at St James's. Newcastle have got a better attacking record in this fixture, 71 goals compared to 50 goals for Aston Villa. Newcastle have also got the better defensive record. 19 clean sheets to 14 clean sheets for Aston Villa. Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 14 home Premier League matches against Aston Villa. 8 wins and 6 draws in a run going back to the infamous Newcastle 0 Villa 3 match back in 2005. There's been just 21 goals scored in this fixture in 11 Premier League matches between Newcastle and Aston Villa, 12 for Villa and 9 for Newcastle. Newcastle's 4-0 win against Aston Villa in October 2022 last season was only their second win in 8 games against Aston Villa. So Aston Villa have got a much better record recently in the last few seasons against Newcastle. 2 wins, 2 draws and 4 defeats. Moving on to some player stats here, I'm going to speak quite a bit here about Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson scored 3 goals and assisted 2 goals in 9 games against Aston Villa. He scored 18 goals and assisted 5 in 36 games for Newcastle in overall, and that was his best return in 3 seasons for Newcastle. He'd scored 11 goals in 12 Premier League games, averaging a goal every 58 minutes. in this run, and that makes him the highest scorer in the Premier League since the start of April. So he was in red hot form at the back end of last season. Obviously, to balance things out, I'm going to speak a bit about Ollie Watkins here. Ollie Watkins, he's scored 3 and he's assisted 1 in 5 games against Newcastle. He also scored, I think, in the pre-season there over in the States. Last season, he scored 15 goals and he assisted 6 goals in 37 games, league games for Aston Villa. And again, that's his highest goals, Premier League goals return in 3 seasons that he's played for Aston Villa. Moving on to the goalkeepers, Nick Pope. He's kept 14 clean sheets in 37 league games for Newcastle last season. Emiliano Martinez, he's got a good record as well. Kept 11 clean sheets in 36 league games for Aston Villa. A little bit about the managers. Eddie Howe, his managerial record against Aston Villa, he's managed 8 games, he's won 4, he's drawn none, and he's lost 4. So 50-50 there against Villa. Unai Emery has an undefeated record in matches he's managed against Newcastle. He's managed 4 games, he's won 3. I think there's a draw in there too. So he has a really good record against Newcastle. Saturday's game is the 8th time that Unai Emery has started a league season with an away match. And he's also won 6 and he's drawn 1 of the previous 7. So a fantastic record in those away matches. And one of those victories as well at the start of the season came at St. James's Park when he was manager of Arsenal. He won 1-0. I think it might have been Aubameyang who got the winner in the 2019-20 season. Some general stats. Newcastle have played Aston Villa in their first home game of the Premier League season. On 3 occasions, they've won 1, drawn 1 and lost 1. There was obviously the infamous 1-0 when Shearer was sent off, lost at home. But again, to balance that, there was the 6-0 hammering back in 2011 when Andy Carroll scored a hat-trick.
Come on. Let's talk about that one.
I think Nolan grabbed 2 in that as well, and Barton scored a screamer. Pre-season stats here, both Newcastle and Aston Villa in really good form in pre-season. Newcastle have been undefeated in pre-season this season with 4 wins, 2 draws in 6 games. That's only the 2nd time in the Premier League era that Newcastle have been undefeated in pre-season. First time since 95-96 season when Newcastle won 5 and drawn 1 in pre-season. Aston Villa, again, similar. They have 3 wins, 3 draws and 1 defeat in 7 pre-season games this year. I thought I'd bring up some stats as well about the first Premier League match of the season stats for both clubs. Newcastle's record on the opening day in the Premier League season, played 28 games, won 9, drawn 7 and lost 12, and just 2 goalless draws in those 28 games on opening day for Newcastle. Aston Villa have got a similar record on the opening day of the Premier League. Played 28, won 9, drawn 8 and lost 11 with 4 goalless draws in 28 games on the opening day of the season for Aston Villa. No team lost fewer matches in the Premier League in 2022-23 than Newcastle with 5. Although one of those games, which we've touched on, was a defeat by Aston Villa in April 3-0. In the calendar year of 2023, only Manchester City have picked up more Premier League wins, 17, and points, 53, than Aston Villa. Aston Villa this year have had 13 wins and 43 points, so a brilliant return for Aston Villa and a brilliant second half of the season for Aston Villa. And that rounds off the stats there for Newcastle versus Aston Villa.
Great way, as always, Keith, to round off those stats for the 23-24 season. Pleasure to have you back, as always. And look, those stats are hopefully going to start getting more and more, even more positive for Newcastle as the years the seasons roll on, because there are some teams where they are very much tilted towards the opposition in some cases. But there are a lot of games. I want to go back to that game against Villa at St James's Park when Andy Carroll scored a hat-trick. Let's go back to the positive times, as well as that Cissé's debut, where he scored a couple at St James's against Villa as well. Let's keep talking about those times.
Can't we talk about the one where Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer had a fight? Can we not talk about that one?
No, we can't.
Okay, fair enough. It's your show and all.
Apparently, Rich, I'm just getting it in my ear for legal reasons. We're not allowed to.
The same for the Alan Shearer sending off against Unai Emery. We can't really mention that because again we're bringing the game into disrepute if we mention that. So,
but we can bring in the fantastic volley that Alan Shearer scored at the Gallagher that against Schmeichel into the top corner. That's a one we can touch on, but unfortunately, as Keith and Pete have mentioned, the other ones. Bring the show into disrepute.
I'm getting in my ear. There's nothing I can do. That's just what the producers.
That's our hands tied, didn't he, Pete?
They very much are. All jokes aside, but look, why not get down to it and let's talk Newcastle United and let's look at the tactics board. So hopefully you boys can see that on the screen. Can you boys see that?
Yeah.
Now, I did ask Rich for his Villa lineup. Billy, I'll ask you if you concur with that or if you would change anything with regards to that. But this is kind of how we think Villa will set up. But this is how I think Newcastle United will set up. And I do need to make one change. Bradford's definitely not starting for me. I think that was going back to the Chelsea game. I apologise. And now this is the team that I think will start in the game on Saturday. So from a Villa point of view, Rich, Billy, Rich, first of all, because you kind of put your team in there, does that look right to you and why? And to be fair, there was a late change because of the Buendia situation.
Yeah. I mean, I had Buendia where Tielemans is on there, like Buendia in the team with instead of Tielemans and slight change. I would have had McGinn behind Watkins and Diaby out wide, but because of that injury, I've put Tielemans in now. What I think Tielemans will probably be tucked in a little bit more, and McGinn will probably be tucked in a little bit more. Purely on the basis of your midfield is, very strong, and we want to try and get an outnumber in midfield. The difficulty with that formation there is Almiron against Torres. So it may be that Luca Dean comes in on that sense, and we play with actually two proper fullbacks on the basis of Buendia being injured, but. Yeah, that's what I've gone for. I think like we've talked about, the midfield is strong there. Both midfields are strong. Last season, you guys totally outdone us in midfield, and we always worry about Joe Linton playing against our midfield. But with numbers in there like we've got, and the way that we can pass through teams, I think we'll be a tough proposition, or a tougher proposition, shall we say?
But Billy, I'll come to you with regards to the Villa formation. Obviously, Rich has given his opinion on the lineup. Do you agree with what Rich said with regards to he's kind of had to change it with the Buendia news? Is there anything you would change in that formation, personnel formation? And equally, I want to ask you, where do you think you can hurt Newcastle with your team set for Saturday?
All right, so my answer kind of merges both of those questions together. Okay. I disagree slightly. I don't think that we're going to play Kamara, Luiz and Tielemans all together, although I do understand where you're coming from, Rich, with the Buendia injury. It's just something that we've not done throughout the whole of pre-season, and I think it'd be very brave of Unai Emery to go with something completely new like that in the first game of the season. away at St James's Park. I think it'd probably be a little bit different if it was at Villa Park. But I don't think I'd have had Buendia starting anyway, to be perfectly honest. I think we will have Bailey in there, and where we hurt Newcastle is on the break, and with that speed of Bailey, Diaby, and Watkins running in behind, we saw how dangerous Watkins was with those balls in behind at Villa Park. He just ran Shah and Botman ragged, and I think we will be trying to do something very similar. However, obviously not quite like that, because you're going to be very savvy to that as well now. Aside from that, I agree. I think the back four will stay the same. I think McGinn's certainly going to play, and yeah, that Dan Burn Botman partnership is where I can see Watkins and Diaby really getting the better of the Newcastle backline.
Interesting. So from a Newcastle perspective now, Rich, this is the team that I've gone for. I have to be honest, I was toying with the idea of putting Tonali in. If it was me and I was picking a team, I would have Tonali in. But Anderson's had a fantastic preseason. It would be really hard for him not to start. But interestingly, I put Joelinton on the right-hand side and I put Anderson on the left, because that's where he's played most of his, if not all of his football during pre-season. Is there anything you would change in that starting lineup? And equally, as I asked Billy, where do you think that we can hurt Aston Villa with that particular lineup?
I think this is where potentially now the squad Newcastle have got is, I think the back five picks itself pretty much. It's pretty straightforward at the moment. Come 12 months and, how, depending on how Livramento's developed, obviously I can see you haven't got him on the bench as yet, but obviously I'm sure you'll be changing at some point. Yeah, I think that the interesting for Newcastle is, and this is where there's so much debate, Bruno picks himself, and Joe Linton does, but then the other four, it's, you could make a case for Longstaff the way he finished the season. Yes, he's had a knockover pre-season, which is probably why, and I understand why you probably put Anderson in there, because Anderson's been fantastic in pre-season. I think any Newcastle fan who's watched him over pre-season would back that as well. And then obviously you've got the Barnes and Gordon. For me, and I agree with you, I would be playing Barnes, because I think Gordon's had a fantastic pre-season as well. I just think that game on Sunday against Villarreal, it looked different class in that second half. And we've talked about this week already, the relationship it seems to be having with Wilson. Seems they've got that, starting to get that understanding already, which is scary, because they've been together a matter of weeks. Obviously Almiron, I think he picks himself on that side, and then obviously you've got the other debate as in Isak and Wilson. Obviously you've gone for Isak. And this is the thing, because Isak is a phenomenal player, but you still can't take away what Wilson gives to the Newcastle team, because he's an out striker. He's got a fantastic record against Villa as well. 18 Premier League goals last season, which included a barren spell after the World Cup, also a brief injury one. So that was a phenomenal return for Wilson. So there's areas where, obviously, as I've mentioned there, we could see a completely different front six, Pete. But obviously, even to be fair, and I think obviously the reason why he's not in, you've got him on the bench, Lewis Miley, it's literally down to how young he is in experiences at Premier League level. But he could probably feel he's been a bit hard done to, because he's had a fantastic pre-season. Well, it's just at a stage where he's 16, 17-year-old, and he probably needs to be going out on loan and getting some games guaranteed week in, week out. Even though his development, if he stayed for 12 months, Newcastle playing around the squad he's got, would bring him on leaps and bounds as well. especially with the cup games. You'd probably get a lot of action in the Carabao Cup. We better run there, but that, and obviously we haven't even mentioned Tonali there. Do you know what I mean? And that's how deep our midfield's getting now. I hadn't even touched on Tonali.
I feel bad.
People
I genuinely feel.
It's.
I was going to go on.
I was going to say, because we know that, obviously with the case with Bruno, he brought and with Botman, he brought players in who and eased them into it, and it could be the case where he does that again. But obviously Tonali's at that. There's a lot of pundits who from other channels as well, and obviously we'll get Rich and Billy's thoughts on this as well. But a lot of pundits are saying that Tonali's a next level signing compared to what Newcastle have had before. So does that automatically give him the right to walk into the starting lineup? I think the interesting question I'd like to see, because obviously we've talked about, we haven't seen Newcastle's best 11 this pre-season. And Eddie Howe's been very, very clever with that. Even to the degree when we played in pre-season, he went with a formation that we've never played before. And obviously that's through a big curveball, not just to, Villa on the day, but to Newcastle fans as well, because obviously I think Villa pretty much hit us in that first 15 minutes. And we were like, I know I was, but when we were in our WhatsApp chat, we were like, what on earth's going on here? But obviously, luckily it was just pre-season and it wasn't really a meaningful game. But it's the question I'd obviously throw towards Billy and Rich is, have we seen the best Villa 11 this pre-season so far? Because obviously we've had pretty much 2 strong 11s in our last 3 or 4 pre-season friendlies. Have we seen your best 11 in your opinion so far?
I'd say yes and no. I'd say he's definitely rotated in certain areas, and I think what he's building now, and probably with Eddie Howe, he's building a squad where, last season with Villa, it was like literally 11, maybe 12 players that were used, particularly the last 10 games of the season. It was the 11 that was on the pitch, and it was swapping Leon Bailey and Bertrand Traore every so often, like with who was slightly more effective. Now, like we've said, obviously with the exception of Emi Buendia and Jacob Ramsey and Alex Moreno's injuries, we're seeing Tielemans in that area that can come in, for competition for Luiz and Kamara. We've got Moussa Diaby that can come in as competition now for Leon Bailey. We've got Philip Coutinho, who we haven't mentioned, who's been sharp in pre-season. You've got the Contra Mings, who will be the first choice, no doubt, but you've got Diego Carlos and Pau Torres. So there's lots of different options that he can play. So I'd say that the team that he played in the last friendly against Valencia was probably close to what would be the starting lineup. But there's certainly players that can come into the team, and this is what Villa fans have been crying out for, that won't affect the way that we're playing and won't be a downgrade. And I guess you guys have said the same thing. You've got Tonali on the bench. Is he going to be any worse than Elliot Anderson coming into midfield, or is a Gordon going to be any worse than Harvey Barnes? They're going to offer something different. So it's about, and many times now in Premier League games, the substitutions that you can make when you win or lose your games, and that's the point. It's not always down to kind of what the starting lineup is. It's how effective your substitutions are, really. And if you've got options on your bench, you can win games from there.
Very, very interesting. It's poised really, really nicely. And Keith, I want to get your thoughts on this. Is there anything that you would change with regards to that lineup, with regards to Newcastle? Is there any? Do you have an issue with Anderson starting? Are you happy that he's starting? We've talked about Tonali. So many in the chat are saying Tonali starts. He has to play. He needs to be in the team. Are you of that mindset? And if so, who do you take out? It's competitive right now.
Yeah. Got to agree with some of the comments Richie was making as well about Wilson. Wilson's got a fantastic record in August. He must be right up there with, one of the best in August starting the season. So I think it's harsh on Wilson, given the season he finished with, and also as well what he's been able to do. I think I pulled up on the other day, on the other preview show, that Wilson in 2 of the last 3 seasons he's got the first goal for Newcastle, and if he plays some part in Saturday's game, either starting or as a substitute, you wouldn't back against him. I think it's harsh if Wilson doesn't start. Tonali, he is that upgrade. We all think he's going to be that next level, and we want to be that next level player, and we can think he's going to be that next level player. The only person you can think of is Anderson coming out, and it would be harsh, Anderson coming out of that team, really. He's scored 4 goals in pre-season for Newcastle. He's a top goal scorer in terms of output. This is the sort of team that you put together, which I think Eddie Howe will pick. I don't. He tends to, the new players, he tends to sort of phase them in. If we think of Botman last year, Botman didn't start straight away. He was coming off the bench, wasn't he, for the first few games? He could do the same with Tonali. That's just some of my thoughts on that lineup there.
Interesting. Really, really interesting. There's one I think Yano's put in the chat. I think Tonali starts ahead of Bruno. Would either of you, Rich or Keith, go for that in terms of the starting lineup on Saturday?
I just think Bruno. When I think of Bruno, I just think I'm linking up well with the front. The attacking. The back of the midfield into attack sort of thing. But I can, I take that point on board from Yano. It could be an option, but it's sort of worked well for the last year and a half, hasn't it? Bruno being in middle for us.
No, it's really, really interesting, massively interesting situation. I think Newcastle's midfield is the most competitive it has been in a very, very long time, with the likes of Anderson, likes of Lewis Miley that's been mentioned before. The fact that we've got our biggest signing this summer, Sandro Tonali, on the bench, says just how big our midfield and how competitive our midfield is. For you boys, Rich and Billy, you wouldn't have watched Newcastle as closely, although you would have seen when we played against you in the summer series, and Elliot Anderson, particularly in the first half. He has been probably our standout performer in this pre-season. He's been absolutely outstanding. 20 years old, effectively more of a left-sided off the front player, but he's been playing the left side of a midfield 3 and been absolutely fantastic. We've got Willock that hasn't been, and he won't be playing at the weekend. He suffered a hamstring injury at the back end of last season, still not fit, hasn't kicked a ball in pre-season. Longstaff is back, and he played against Villarreal or Fiorentina. Well, he played over last weekend anyway. But I would say that he will just miss out purely because I just think, in my opinion, Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton are first choice starters, and Elliot Anderson has just been outstanding. The interesting one, and I get your thoughts on this, Keith, just before we move on. I went for Harvey Barnes on the left-hand side. Do you have an issue or a concern with that? Not necessarily a concern, or would you have preferred Gordon, which was the conversation in the week building up to this game? Would it be Gordon? Would it be Barnes? I went with Barnes. Would you agree with that, or would you prefer Gordon in there?
Agree with that. I think Barnes has just got that end product. He's delivered over the last 3 seasons, 13 goals, 10 goals, and the assists as well. I think Gordon is going in the right direction. He had a fantastic summer, in particular for England under 21s. So I think Gordon's going to come on, and there's the potential there definitely for more end product from Gordon. But if the decision I would make and player I want to see in the first team based on recent forms, Barnes. So I wouldn't disagree with that, Pete.
Richie, just before we move on, would you change Barnes for Gordon? You happy with that? Just last little points.
As I said before, I prefer Barnes, literally because of what we saw on Sunday. However, if you're right and Isak starts through the middle, I think we might see Gordon start, and then Wilson and Barnes would come on together.
Yeah, definitely. Wouldn't be against that, and it just shows the strength and depth with regards to the squad. Any last points from a Villa perspective, Rich and Billy, before we move on from your team? Look, we have to talk about Tyrone Mings. I'm going to throw it in there.
Billy, let me hand this before you jump in.
Come on, Rich.
Pete knows my thoughts on Tyrone Mings.
Look, I'm going to ask you the question: why is he still starting when you've got Pau Torres, who's a left-sided centre back? Come on, talk to me.
Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa were Keith read out the results for the second half of last season, and you've got to say that those two were up there with the defensive partnership in the Premier League, certainly for that second half of the season. So, Mings is what I don't get it. I don't get why other teams don't like him. For me, he's a perfect centre half in the fact that he's a 100% man. If he makes a mistake, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He makes a mistake, but I'd sooner have 11 Tyrone Mingses in my team than players with hearts of a pea. So I just don't know why teams don't like him. Maybe it's because he chews gum, mate. I don't know why they don't like him. But for me, he gets in the team. I say Louise and McGinn at the moment. I know Billy said that he'd have Tielemans in ahead of Louise, but for me, Louise and McGinn probably are first names on the team sheet. But behind them, and Martinez, and closely behind them is Tyrone Mings, because he's everything Aston Villa is at the minute, and he's improved. And yeah, I mean, I might be cursing him before Saturday, but yeah, he's been a fantastic player for us.
Go on, Billy.
I second everything Rich has just said. Since Emery's come in, he's been really, really solid for us. And I think he gets a lot of unjust criticism. I think a lot of people watch him expecting a mistake, and anything that he does slightly wrong, everyone just hounds him for. And I even include Villa fans in that as well, to be honest with you. Because we know that he's got a mistake in him, a dodgy pass back to the keeper or across to his to the left back or the centre back, whatever it may be, into midfield. You get to a point where you're somewhat expecting it eventually, and you just hope that a goal doesn't come of it. I think a lot of that has been cut out of his game, to be honest with you, since Emery's come in. He's been really, really solid, and yeah, he deserves to be playing in there.
Nah, fair play. Look, I'd much rather Pau Torres be in there if I was a Villa fan. I think he's better.
I think maybe in the future, but I think against your boys, you probably would want Pau Torres in there, because I think Isak or Wilson would smash him off the ball. But I think physicality, for a physical perspective, I think we have to go with Mings, particularly against Newcastle at St James's Park.
And that's one of the things about having such a big squad. And you could say the same for both teams. Not necessarily your defence, I don't think, because you don't have as many centre-back pairing options. But I think Villa, now we've got the freedom. We've got Torres and Carlos there, as well as Konsa and Mings. And we can change that depending on the opposition as well. If we need if someone's going to be a bit more physical against us, then stick Tyrone Mings in. We know that he can deal with it. If we're going to have a little bit more possession of the ball, then maybe you put Torres in there instead. These are the options that going forward, both teams are able to make, whereas previous seasons, you've had your 11, the players coming on the bench. Are they an upgrade? Are they taken away from the squad? A lot of the time they were. And And so now having this squad, this is why it's so important to have a squad as well. So yeah, I think we can change things up depending on the opponent as well.
Just one more thing. Sorry, I think also we forget that, like, you know, as you got with Botman and Shah at the moment, you know, Konsa and Mings is a partnership, and we all, like, Mings takes the focus because he is that man who engages with the ball. You know, he goes to win headers. He's the man who's free in the box for a corner, who has to win the header. Whereas Ezri Konsa, like, he's been phenomenal the second half of the season. And I don't know if you guys saw his goal against Brentford in pre-season, where he literally ran the length of the pitch and then put it in the top corner.
Yeah.
But he's again, and I think it's about partnerships with centre backs. And sometimes you don't get the best player, as you know, maybe a Tyrone Mings isn't the best on the ball, but Konsa's got that kind of probably calmness and speed, and they complement each other well. So yeah, I think it's going to be that is going to be, particularly in the Premier League, a difficult partnership to break. But that's what you want. You want competition for places.
Definitely, it is all about competition for places. You're right. Look, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm not going to lie. I'm always going to say Konsa's better than Mings. I really rate Konsa as a centre back. Some Villa fans don't agree, but it is what it is. But I genuinely think that Pau Torres won't spend too long on that left-hand side. I think he'll be shipped into the middle and replace Mings long term, because he's a quality centre-back. And you've got Alex Moreno, who's not in. So I do think that will push that decision very quickly as the season moves on, which is what you said. Strength in numbers, building a squad. This is what it's all about. Who's to say that Mings doesn't become your European centre-back and play in those competitions, which I think you'll probably do really well in. But Torres over Mings for me. Always keep that mentality. But look, I'm not against Mings starting against Newcastle United, because I do think that he does give a mistake now and again, and we could benefit from that. Whether it's a bad pass, whether it's a bad tackle, potentially in the box, fingers crossed. But we'll see. But what you've got is you've got a quality goalkeeper in the net, and that'll be very, very difficult to get past him. But look, we'll continue this conversation aside from the tactics board, and we'll get to a couple of questions before we get to our predictions for the game on Saturday. So, look, Richie, is there any questions in there for Billy and Rich before we get to those predictions?
There's absolutely loads, as per usual. Right, obviously, it was touched on briefly at the start, but just to give you a little bit of this individual segment here on Buendia, obviously there's rumours he's out for the 5 to 6 months. What's both of your thoughts on that, and how impactful is it going to be for you?
It's a huge blow. It is. However, I'm not as concerned as others, and that is probably mainly because of Coutinho's performances in pre-season. He's looked really sharp, really energetic, and he looks like he's wanted to take his opportunity when he's got it. And so whenever he's come on, whenever he's played, he's brightened things up. And that's probably the reason why I'm not as concerned as what I maybe would have been had it have been last season. So yeah, of course it's a big loss. It's a massive loss. He's a fantastic player. But yeah, if Coutinho can continue on this trajectory he's been over pre-season, then I don't think it's as big a loss as some are probably making out.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Buendia has been a player who has, look, and the injury is terrible. It could be 6 to 8 months, to be honest. So we obviously wish him well. But in terms of him he's playing for Villa, in terms of his form, he's in my opinion flattered to deceive quite a lot. And he's been the kind of, he's summed Villa up really, particularly going forwards. In some games he's unplayable. In other games he's anonymous. So I guess it just comes at a time where we've not got Jacob Ramsey, who's a massive player for us. He's injured, so he's not back until kind of 3 or 4 games in. Like Billy said, we've got Coutinho, who is playing really well. So it just cuts down those options a little bit. But hopefully we get a couple of players in to kind of compensate. But yeah, massive loss for him, because I feel like he was maybe generating a bit of momentum and would have produced some better numbers that he really needed to do, to be honest with you.
Okay. Stu Amos wants to know which player in the Newcastle squad would improve your current squad.
I think it would be Isak or Wilson, 100%. Like, in terms of another option up front, and like I say, Watkins is a good striker. Don't get me wrong, and I think the stats speak for themselves. But for that different option, for that quality, I think probably an Isak would be my choice, I think.
Billy?
I would say Kieran Trippier, to be honest with you. Previously, I've been a big critic of him before he was at Newcastle. The Southgate England thing, I didn't get it really. I've been proven wrong, and I'm happy to hold my hands up that I've been proven wrong. I think he's been fantastic for you, and I think the right back positions, there's definitely upgrades out there on Matty Cash, I think, particularly going forward as well. And what Trippier offered, both going forward and defensively, I think he's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
Okay. Bill Burnett, I'll come to you with this one, Rich. He wants to know, because obviously you are going through went through a takeover. Obviously, you've got Emery in now, and he's splashing the cash to stuff. So, are Villa having the same FFP problems that Newcastle are having?
I don't think they're FFP problems, but there has been, like, there's 1 or 2 Villa podcasts that have kind of the local, like, journalists, and we had on our podcast a Midlands correspondent for the Mail, and he, they've said that lots of teams are aware of FFP and are having to, pretend like make sales or do, work on accounting and certain things in their accounts to make sure that they're kind of taking care of it. And they're also really waiting for what happens to Everton in their case in October, to see, what happens. So if obviously they kind of get away with a fine or whatever, then you might see some big spending in January and the next summer. But at the moment, I think teams are really aware of it. Now, Villa have been lucky on the fact that we've been able to sell Jack Grealish for 100 million, came through the academy, pure profit. Carney Chukwuemeka for 20 million, again, pure profit, came through the academy. And we're selling not Jacob Ramsey, Aaron Ramsey, his younger brother, for 14 million, again, through the academy, pure profit. And there's talk of potentially Cameron Archer going to, I think Sheffield United are interested in him. And that would probably be a 20 million fee as well. Again, pure profit. So we've had a real push with our academy of late, the last 3, 4, 5 years. And that's what's really kind of helping us with FFP. And I know you guys are trying that now to try and improve your academy, because ultimately it's a revenue stream. If anything, there are going to be the odd player that comes through, but reality is that they will create money for your club, and that's what you want from the academy.
It's interesting you mentioned the potential outgoing of youngsters. I was actually going to go follow on to that, because obviously it's obviously any transfer fee you get off them as well counts straight towards the FFP anyway. It takes it off straight away. You don't have to have it back in segments like you do if it's a transfer fee that you pay out. Now, the reason why I went onto FFP, because obviously this is going to be a question I'm going to link to all 4 years, and I'll start with the Villa lads first, Billy, then Rich, and then obviously we'll go to Keith and Pete. Obviously, there's big rumours that there's potential that Harry Kane could be on his way to Bayern. So are the Villa fans concerned that Spurs may go for Watkins as a replacement? But also to the Newcastle lads, obviously we talked in our WhatsApp chat about this. Is Wilson a potential target if Kane was to go? So I'll start with you, Billy, first.
I think he would probably be on the list of targets. I don't think that we would let him go. And I don't necessarily think that he would want to go either. Saying that, I think it's important that we nail him down to a new contract, because I think he's only got about 2 years left. So if a substantial fee comes in and, it beats our valuation and Watkins maybe wants to go himself, then I think we could probably see him go. In my opinion, it's not the end of the world. I don't think he does tend to miss a few chances. And again, I do think that there are upgrades out there on him. However, he's a proven Premier League player. He's one of only a few players that have scored 10 plus goals in the past 3 seasons. And Unai Emery supposedly loves him. So yeah, I don't think he will go, to be perfectly honest with you. I think we're quite safe with that one. However, like I say, I do think it's important that we nail him down to a new contract.
Rich?
I actually had this theory about 3 weeks ago, and I think I did a TikTok video on it, and I said that I could see Tottenham going in for Watkins, and I feel like his agent is holding out on a new contract to see what happens with the Spurs deal with Kane, or maybe one or two other clubs. And why wouldn't you? That's what you would do, yeah. So I said that Mane would go from Bayern, Kane would go to Bayern, and then Tottenham would go in for Watkins. And like Billy said, you get 60, 70 million for him, then you've got to really consider it. My only thing that I think probably means it won't happen is, one, I think Kane is looking like he's going to turn down the move. And two, these deals, like you saw, Harvey Barnes wanted to go to Newcastle, and even that took 3 or 4 weeks, and so for a player who Villa don't want to sell and then negotiating a potential new contract with, I don't think they'd be able to get it over the line in time before the end of the window, unless it was ridiculous money. So yeah, I don't see it happening in this window, but it is something to consider if he goes. And the guy's laughing there, but we're talking about a striker that scored double figures in the Premier League for the past 3 seasons. And he's an England international, and Villa don't need to sell. So you would be talking upwards of 60 mil. You'd have to. Strikers are hard to come by.
I'm going to jump in on this. I was on a pod tonight with Saeed, and we were having this conversation about the Harry Kane situation, about the Declan Rice situation. I'm sorry, I agree with what Rich is saying with regards to Watkins. There are certain transfers that have happened over this summer that have completely skewed the market. I'm not being funny. Declan Rice is not worth 105 million. I would say that Bellingham is the top young central midfielder in the world right now, but I still don't think he's 115, 110 million. I just don't see it. But what it's done, it's created a market a little bit like, I don't know if you boys remember when Neymar went to PSG from
the ripple
Arsenal,
effect.
and the ripple effect it had from that in terms of value in the market. Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, in my opinion, have created that in the market. So what I would say is that I would say, yes, around the 60, 70 million mark is what Watkins would command. Equally, another player that is not part of either of our teams in Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney would be worth similar amounts because of what he's done for Brentford. But from a Newcastle perspective, in a few years' time, I'm not saying it would happen, and I pray it doesn't, but if that's the case for the midfielders that are going now, for me, Bruno Guimaraes is worth over 100 million. 110%. If Declan Rice is going for 105, Bruno Guimaraes is worth more than that, in my opinion, because I think he is a better midfielder, in my opinion. Some Arsenal fans would disagree. some other clubs fans will disagree. For me, Bruno Gomes is worth over 100 million if Declan Rice is going for 105, and that's how it skewed the market. So yeah, I would agree in terms of how the market is right now. Ollie Watkins, 70 million. Yeah, you don't need to sell him. You can command whatever fee you want. And there are other players out there that are going for big fees that probably don't command it. You go for Lavia. Lavia is a 19-year-old. You're being rejected 45, 50 million pound bids. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Paqueta's another one.
Paqueta, like, honestly, he went to West Ham, what, for 45, 50 million?
I think it was about 53. I think it was. It ended up being Pete with all the
yeah,
add-ons.
bonuses, yeah.
100 and what was it? 105 million or something
Around
euros?
there, something like
100.
that, isn't it?
So you're looking at in the 80s plus million. It's crazy.
He stunk the place out for half a season at West Ham.
For half a season, Rich, he'd looked like he didn't even want to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
The World Cup, he looked like he didn't even want to be there,
Yeah.
and he looked like he was at home for Brazil in the World Cup. And then all of a sudden, when the big games start to kick in for Paqueta, you saw him really start to kick into gear. And I would be shocked if he doesn't try and force this move to Man City before the end of the window, because I think he's looking for an exit. Equally, at the end of next season, he's got a release clause, and I think if he doesn't push or he doesn't get his move this summer, he'll be off next summer. This was never a long-term venture for Lucas Paqueta at West Ham. But look, Richie and Keith, you'll know many a player. You look at Moussa Sissoko and you look at many other players. Johan Cabaye, for example, we loved him. Gini Wijnaldum. They were never looking at being at Newcastle United for very long. It was always a stepping stone. Luckily, we're not that type of club now. But there are many other clubs that are kind of struggling with regards to that. But before we move on, I think we have some news, Richie.
We do have some breaking news. Firstly, I want to say a huge thanks to Geordie Mick for donating 5 memberships tonight as well. So Geordie Mick, much appreciated. There's been a lot of people in the chat who are regulars who have been donating memberships to other people in the chat over the recent weeks. And it's a fantastic gesture, something that we appreciate as a channel. And also the people actually who've had them donated have actually been logging in later because they might not have been in the live chat and finding out they've had a membership donate and asking us who's donated them one. So it really shocks them that we've got such a fantastic, kind chat and a family. Our load of adults, they're absolutely fantastic. But more importantly, it was the big one, the one we asked for earlier on. We've literally, obviously, just been checking throughout the show. As you can see in the middle of that picture, Lord Mark NUFC have finally hit the 6K mark for subscribers. Thank you very much, guys. We are so appreciative of the support. And as we were discussing the other night, now it's the march to wherever this channel is, because we know, we keep getting constantly told that our content's fantastic. We have fantastic guests that join us who are knowledgeable about whatever topic, whether it's their club or a subject. So look, just as I know Pete will say the same as well. Just an absolute huge thanks to all of you who subscribe. That it makes it so worthwhile, all the hard work that everybody puts in during the shows, behind the scenes to prepare the shows. Daz does some fantastic graphic works, and everyone loves all the intros he puts in for Keith and the intros to the start of the show and stuff like that. So, look, a huge thank you from myself, Pete, obviously Daz and Chris on, and I'm sure they'll say their thanks when they're on next as well. But from a channel, thank you very much, guys.
Definitely. Look, really interesting, Rich. Before we started, I think you kind of asked the question. Do you guys do this full time? We don't. We're a channel where this is ultimately our hobby. We've got work and family commitments where for long parts of the day we're out of action, but we managed to team together to be able to put on shows and content for you guys. and it's an absolute pleasure to do so. So for the fact that we've hit 6K is absolutely amazing. Like, we never ever thought when we started this journey with purely Newcastle United content that we would ever get to that point. And that 6K is a big milestone. But as Richie's just mentioned, and as we've been talking about in the background, there is lots more to come. And look, we want not only to get to 7K next, we want to be pushing to that 10K and above and beyond, and the likes of Marlon and everybody else supporting the channel is amazing. So thank you very much for your support. Keep supporting us. Like I say, we do this as a hobby. This is something that we take our extra time out of to put this together. So keep supporting us. We're not done yet. Away days is just up and running, as is Loaded Mag NUFC for the 23-24 season. So thank you all for your support. And look, we move on with the show. So any other questions before we get to predictions?
Yeah, there's obviously the one, I can't remember who answered it, but obviously I'm going through all the comments and the congratulations. Basically, to either of you, is it true that Moussa Diaby is living in London? Obviously, that was banded around. Is he commuting from London to Birmingham?
First
on
time
a
I've
daily
heard of
basis?
that one.
No idea. No idea. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it would surprise me if he does. Yeah, no idea.
Okay.
You could probably get a helicopter to training. It'd probably take him 20 minutes.
Bit like Harry Redknapp.
Yeah.
Tom Dixon wants to know how many goals do you think Ollie Watkins will score this season?
Go on, Billy. You go, mate.
It's a difficult one. I don't know. He smashed it last season, didn't he, with the 16, and after such a poor start as well under Gerrard. If he continues like that, I don't think there's any reason why he can't push that 20 goal mark. I'm obviously hopeful that he does that for Villa as well as my FPL. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm going to say 20. I think that's a fantastic season all round, and I think nobody can complain with that. So hopefully, if he continues to play as he is, injuries in mind as well, of course, hopefully he manages to play a full season again. So I'm going to go for 20. I'm hopeful that he gets 20.
I think it'll be around the same 15, 16, 17 that he got last season. I think it's so difficult for strikers these days or centre forwards to get 20 goals. I mean, unless you're Erling Haaland or Harry Kane, was there any other striker that got 20 plus last season?
I think there was quite a few actually. Just try and get it up now if I can.
20 plus Premier League.
Haaland, Harry Kane, Ivan Toney, Salah on 19. Sorry, Wilson on 18. Rashford.
It's so difficult because of the way that teams play. But I think what Emery did for Watkins that helped him so much was he cut down how much running he had to do, or wanted him to do, because Watkins was covering so much ground. He was just saying, like, don't cover so much ground, let the other players do that for you, and you just stay within the width of the penalty box. And he still does that chasing a little bit, but he's become more productive in the box. So if you can continue on in that vein, then yeah, I think that 18 mark would be something that would be consistent. And if he could tip over that 20, then that'd be great. But I'd say probably around 17, 18.
I think the interesting thing it'll be to see what your contributions are from the flanks. Will depend on what he gets, because obviously if you look at obviously we had Joe Linton, Miggy, Isak all got double figures as well, but obviously Wilson was still able to go out and get 18.
Yeah.
Would that have an adverse effect if you're getting a bigger goal contribution from, say, Moussa Diaby? Because obviously he's a threat in front of goal, as we've seen from his time in the Bundesliga, and obviously the short spell during pre-season as well. That's it for questions. However, I do want to mention something before we go to predictions, Pete. And obviously, we said a big thanks for us for the 6K. There's been a lot of love for a certain person in the chat tonight. And it's all for our regular Stato. Two traded bases. Keith needs to have a regular spot on here with the lads. He's my hero. No offense to us lot, but Stato needs to have a daily spot. Who wants Keith on every show? He's the best stat by a mile. And just to prove a point and hit it, Pete, hit the super chat button. He didn't come in with a question. He came in with a comment. And it's a mutual love one.
Super chat received.
Brilliant. $4.99 donation off Ian to do. Much appreciated for the support of the channel. Congratulating us on smashing 6K, but mostly for Keith being the best stat on any NUFC channel. There you go, Keith. Next time we all meet up, Ian Toontrade has bought you a pipe, mate. There you go, mate.
That's really, really kind. That's unbelievable. I'm very touched by that. Thank you very much. Absence makes the heart go fonder. Being away for a little bit and then coming back in. You would soon get fed up with me if I was on every day, you know.
Surely not. Pete, back to you, mate.
No, thank you for your questions and your comments. We've had Adam McCarthy that's made himself a member for 18 months. Massive thanks to you. Of course, earlier on in the show, Geordie Mick donated 5 memberships, which was just amazing. The amount of donations for memberships across various people over the summer so far has just been amazing. So thank you, Geordie Mick, for that. And yes, I concur. Keith, you are superb with your stats. Like, I don't know anybody that knows their stats like you. And this is why we are so blessed to have you on the show and a part of the channel. Some people say he's not part of the channel. You are. He is a part of the Loaded family. And it was proven that you were a part of our team for the charity football event. So you are definitely part of the channel. That is for sure. And look, you're a big part of Away Days.
If ever we do anything like that again, and I give a prediction like that again, we need to get that on camera and be like a YouTube short or something.
We will. We will.
Where I did the old 5-0 for the Southampton score, I went big there. You know, that was on Stato like there. That was on Doc Doom like there with that prediction.
We will. Don't worry about that. But look, as Billy's resident disappearance from this show, he'll come back in a second.
There he is.
In fact, he already is back. Boys, we're going to come to prediction time. And of course, I want to get the final score that you think is going to be on Saturday around sort of 7:30 in the evening at St. James's Park. Richie, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the score's going to be?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to do it, Keith. I'm not going to get splinters and sit on the fence. I do think there'll be goals, as I mentioned earlier on. Unfortunately, I do think that both teams will score. But I think we'll come out on by the odd goal. So I'm saying 2-1 Newcastle.
2-1 Newcastle. As Jamie Burton is just become a member for the next 14 months. Massive thank you to you for becoming a member. Newcastle fan living in Birmingham. Ooh. Yeah, we're growing.
Jamie and Rich.
Yeah, must have swapped places. Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe we're just growing and maybe we can get that. You know, you've already got the Ginola Ferdinand top on, Rich. Maybe we can get the one coming soon. We'll see. But Rich will come with you from a Villa perspective. What do you think the final score is going to be on Saturday evening?
I am going to sit on the fence, boys. I'm going to say we just, you guys don't beat Villa at Villa Park and we don't beat you at St. James's. So I think it's going to be a draw, lads. And I think it's going to be both teams to score. I think it's going to be 2-2, though. An exciting game. I think it's going to be 2-2 draw.
So many on social media have gone for 2-2 for this game on Saturday.
Gone for Desmond.
Yeah. Desmond. Billy, what do you think the score's going to be from your perspective, mate?
I'm going to get off that fence and I'm going to be similar to Richie, but just the other way around. I think,
Right, that's it. He's gone. His electric's cut off again. That's it. So he's not coming back again. No.
Delete.
No, it's a real opportunity, I think, for us to puff our chests out a bit and say we're here, kind of thing. And yeah, with the way that we've been playing in pre-season, there's a lot of positivity around Villa Park. I know there is around St. James's Park as well, and it's going to be a fantastic game for the neutral. I'm a bit jealous I can't watch it as a neutral. but I think we can just edge it. But like I say, it's going to be very, very close. And I think it will probably tilt one way or another. I'm just hopeful it obviously tilts on my side.
Interesting. Very interesting. Just as we go to myself, Lisa, thank you for your membership for the next 17 months. Congratulations, lads. Best tune show going.
I was about to say, Pete, I was going to bring this up. We've got to have another big shout out to Lisa as well, because like Keith and Stato, Lisa's a huge part of the Loaded family. And she's, pretty much I would say our head admin. She's been, she's pretty much on every single show. She keeps everybody in line in the chat and support, and plugs away likes and subscribes every single show. We wouldn't be the same show without her, and obviously that's to all the all Loaded Ultras love her as well. So Lisa, you're part of the family as well, and we appreciate all your support during that time as well.
100%. We wouldn't get the likes that we do for these shows without her. The amount of plugs that she gives during every show to get these likes is amazing. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you for being a part of the journey. Yes, some have made reference to the Matt Hardy delete, but yes, we don't want any negatives from our point of view. For me, I think Newcastle United are going to win. I think it will be 3-1 win to Newcastle. I'm going to be confident in that we're going to put a performance in, but I do think Villa will cause us some problems. It's going to be an entertaining game regardless. But of course, we come lastly to Keith for your opinion. Now, everyone's wanting to know what Dr. Doom is going to come with regards to his predictions. What are you going to say? Are you going to sit on the fence, or are you going to go for it first game of the season?
Before I make my prediction, I'll just agree with all your comments of what you've just said there about Lisa. I think things have just gone up another level since Lisa came on board and has been doing the fantastic job Thatcher's been doing, really raised the standards, took it to another level. Brilliant. But yes, I think this game is going to be an entertaining game. For the neutral, it could be one of the best games of the weekend, really. The time it is, sort of 5:30, two attacking teams who've just came on leaps and bounds in the last few seasons. Both similar in the doldrums, but they've both came up. The last couple of seasons took it to another level. I do think Villa will score. I cannot see Newcastle keeping a clean sheet because they weren't really keeping that many in the second part of the season. I'll be really worried if Villa score first. That's all I'm saying. But I think, I do see a goal for Watkins again, against Newcastle. But I think this will be a cracker of a game. I do think that it could be a Desmond, but I've gone for this score.
Should we be surprised, Keith? Really?
Yeah.
I
would disappoint everybody if I'd gone the other way. You've got to allow us at least one a season.
What?
There's
another 37 to come.
one or two. But this one, you have to think realistically. This could be a draw. It's going to be a brilliant game.
New season, same Keith. That's what I'll say. 1-1 on the board for Dr. Doom and Mr. Keith.
I just want to know if Ian Toon Trader's going to change his mind now after that prediction, or whether he's happy with it.
I don't know. But look, guys, the first one is in the bank. Away Days is back. Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you so much, Billy, for joining us.
Not a problem.
You know what?
Pleasure,
you
mate.
Guys are such great guests. Obviously, some people in social media like to build up that rivalry with Villa and Newcastle.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, Pete. There's an inflammatory comment in the chat there about Sunderland. I'm not from Sunderland, okay? That's about 12 miles from where I live. I may be originally born in south of the river, but that's Gateshead. There's a good 12 miles from Gateshead to Sunderland, and I'm closer to St James's Park, I always have been, than Sunderland. So not a chance am I from Sunderland. Thanks, Geordie Toon for life.
Just wanted to make that point. But look, Richie, Billy, absolute pleasure to have you on. You're such a fantastic guest. So easy to talk to. Great knowledge on your club and Newcastle as well. And look, honestly, game on Saturday aside, best of luck for the season. I think lots in the chat said it right at the beginning of the show. It's great that we've got Villa and Newcastle fighting at the top end of the table to disrupt, the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Tottenhams, all those that have been very, very comfortable in their top 6 positions. And long may it continue. And look, we'll get you boys back on again when we come to Villa Park later on in the season. But best of luck. Thank you for joining us. Absolute pleasure. Keith, you are back with a bang. And of course, Richie, always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you for everything you do with the comments. Great questions, great involvement as always. Standard procedure.
Just quickly, congrats on 6K as well, lads.
Yeah,
Really much
great job,
appreciated.
boys.
Doesn't stop there. Loaded 10K. Let's push. Let's make that push, that next step. But look, before we go, we've got 2 podcasts that we want to plug. So, Rich, plug your podcast where we can find you from a Villa perspective.
Yeah, as you see there, the Villa Park podcast. We've been going properly on YouTube for just over a year now. So literally started sort of this time last year, and we're already, I think it's nearly 2.5K, which is great for us. So we're trying to emulate you boys in terms of the growth and get that past that 3K and beyond, and up to 6K hopefully very soon. So yeah, obviously we try and keep it balanced. We've got Villa fans who disagree as well, so we're quite a feisty bunch, and we try and cover all sorts, match previews, match reactions, try and get different people on for interviews, and try and do shorter videos for like transfer news as well. So lots of variety. So yeah, hit that, come and subscribe to us as well if you want to get a different club's perspective. It'd be great to have you over as well.
Definitely. And Billy, of course, your podcast, give it a plug. Where can we find you, mate?
Total Screamers podcast, all the usual places, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. We're everywhere pretty much. Not got out as much content as what we would have liked to this year, but slowly but surely we're gonna get back into the swing of things, and yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Any follows, likes, subscribes, whatever, all really, really appreciated.
Brilliant stuff. Keith, brilliant to have you on. We're going to find you next week, hopefully, where we're going to be talking all things stats for the Man City game. So keep an eye on that. And
he's allowed to sit on the fence next week.
I'll not be sitting on the fence next week. Don't worry, Man City. I never sit on the fence for Man City.
Okay, we'll see. But sponsors, massive thanks to radiatorshed.com for all your support, Rush and the team. Thank you for your support, continued support over the course of the last year. You've been a massive help for us as a channel. So make sure you get to the radiatorshed.com and support all things with Rush and the team. And of course, all designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and are perfect for heat source pumps. They offer home survey, service, and will install if required. And just having a look through the various different radiators that are available, fantastic and on offer. And of course, the bathroom design, H2O, make sure you give them huge support for all things that they offer with their bathroom designs. Rilloyd and bathrooms were Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate Gateshead, to show your support. Fantastic sponsors for the channel. So have a look at both of our sponsors that are there and show your support for them as well if you haven't already. And of course, we have to plug. We've had more memberships tonight. Join the channel. Click that blue button. You can only do it on mobile, not on you can do it on laptop, not on mobile, with regards to clicking that blue button. $1.99 a month, and you can be entered into the prize draws, which Chris is cooking up very much so for the last part of this transfer window. At this point, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you for all your support, your questions, your comments. It makes the difference to us, and it means everything to us, the fact that you take your time to join us in the channel. But look, guys, that's a wrap. And of course, we do love playing away.
Good night, everyone.
Chris?
Good night.
No, sorry. Not
That's
Chris.
what I say. Cheers, mate.
No, Chris. I'm so used to saying Chris. Richie, how do we end the show?
Well, I would say, how do you like that? I don't like the comment you just called us, mate, but how do you like that?
At least he's taller. We'll take that.
How you like